Hey everybody, it's Travis speaking. If you've been following along, the last video we did was all about top rails in your for your stairs or just regular handrails. This next video, what I would like to do is take a look at the actual handrail types. So you can see I've got this stair set up here with some different dimensions here on the actual handrail. So what I'll do is I'll just move that over for the time being just so we can kind of see a little bit better. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get into edit type. First things first though, I guess what we can take a look at is the tread stringer offset. Basically this decides where in relation to the stringer is this handrail going to be. So right now it's at -1. If we go back to the plan view, you can see what -1 looks like. So let's just see here. If I change that to a +1 and hit apply, you'll see that it goes out by a ½ inch. If this was 0, we'll see a bit of an overlap. So basically the center point or the center line of this hand railing is at the inside edge of the stringer. So that's why if I say -1, it'll actually move it right over top. Okay, so let's go back to the section and we'll take a look at some of the baluster placement and some other options in here for this guy. So bear in mind you're going to want to name your railing family accordingly. So if you start changing up some of the rail structure or whatever, it might be a good idea to actually just duplicate the existing railing and name it something specific. So I'm going to go into the rail structure here, and as you can see there's 2 rails. So there's the secondary, which is at 2'6", and the bottom rail, which is at 6 inches. The offset is basically the value, the horizontal value of where this exists relative to the handrail. So if I needed to set these out away from the balusters, then I could do that and have them on the sides, and I would just give them an offset of whatever the baluster thickness is. So you can see I've used two different heights. One's at 2'6" and the other is 6 inches. So the 6-inch one, essentially it's from the top of the tread to the center point of this railing, and then the secondary one is 2'6", so it's 2'6" off the top of this tread to the center point of this railing. Like I said, if we applied that offset, we wouldn't see it in the section. But if we were to take a look at the 3D view, we would see that either go to the inside of the stair or to the outside. So you can apply those and tinker with that. I'm just going to hit OK, and now we'll get into the baluster placement. So if you hit baluster placement, you'll get this dialog box, which can look a little bit intimidating at first because there's a lot to change here. But as you can see, I've got one thicker baluster and one thinner one. And so I've put 8 inches in both of these just so we can see how these dimensions change. So if I change the first one to, let's say, I'm going to put that in as 1'6". Okay, and we hit apply, you'll see that shift quite significantly. There's a lot changing here. Okay, so if this is a 2-inch, this is my 1-inch, so I shifted my 1-inch baluster here from 8 inches to 1'6", and the distance from previous essentially is from this baluster to this post. Okay, so if we change that just to 6 inches itself, we'll see that that's basically come in much closer. I don't have a dimension showing that, but I do have one from the post to the secondary one. So if we take a look at this right now, this is 8 inches from this baluster. So let's move that to 1'6", and we'll see that change. So basically what you're looking at is a post, which counts as the previous for your first, and then the second baluster type is going to be well, this one would be 6 inches from here, and this one's going to be 1'6" from the last one. Okay, so if we change that just to 1 foot, we should see that get a little bit closer. So it can be a little bit confusing once you put these in here, especially if you put in a baluster type and then you put in your secondary baluster as a glass panel, and it's got that static 2'8" panel width. So bear in mind when you're looking at these, the distance from previous, it's actually the spacing that you want plus 1/2 of the thickness of the baluster. So if it is a glass panel fill, you're going to want to take the width of the panel and divide that by 2, and then add the spacing you want between the baluster and the panel. Okay, so I'm going to leave that as is and move on from here because there's a number of other things to look at. You can duplicate this, so if we wanted to put in another one, you can see that now when we have, if we go to this one and we put 2 feet, now we've got a third baluster type. It's the same profile, but change that to baluster 3/4, we can see the difference here. Okay, so I'll get rid of that for the time being. But you can also change this to break the pattern, and essentially you gives you the option if I don't have a very sharp angle, like maybe my railing or my stair is turning at like a 45 or a 30-degree angle and I don't want to post there, you can say, okay, don't break it any less than 30 degrees. So if this is saying angles greater than 30, then you can pop that in and you have that option as well. You can say never, and then it'll never break the pattern, or you can say at each segment end. So wherever you turn a corner, now you're going to get a post, and the pattern continues on from the start after that. And you also have justify, so you can say justify at the beginning, end, center. So we'll move those around, you can see the difference. And now you'll notice that our post here has moved, so we don't actually want that. I'd say spread pattern to fit typically, and now it's saying that one of our dimensions that we've placed in here is no longer there. We'll just say leave that at center for the time being. And you can see you have an excess fill length. So if the justification doesn't really work, you can fill in that extra space with another baluster type. I wouldn't recommend doing that with this panel because that's probably going to go over it being a static length. Okay, so I'd say none for that. Now you can also modify this to say use a baluster per tread, and if we do that, we'll get it'll ask us to take those dimensions out again. You'll notice that it modifies everything. Now we just have this first type of baluster in here. Okay, and it's this one, the baluster square 3/4 inch. So this is kind of overriding the first part, everything that we've done, and it's putting in 2 balusters per tread. If we wanted to say 3, make sure that it's to code, nobody's getting through that, you can do that. You can change it to 1, whatever you want really. So down here as well, we've got options for our posts. So right now it's saying corner posts at never. We want to see that at each segment end. Okay, and now we see that post come in over here. And then the last thing, I guess, is the way that these posts get laid out. So in each you have a start, an end, and a corner post. You can change those. And basically you're going to see the same profile families that are in the balusters, but you have some other options in as well. And you might want to have like a specific type of post. So basically you just create that family, load it into the project, and you'll see that available to you in here. So I'm going to stick with these 2-inch posts, but I just want you to see some of the other things here. So the base right now is saying host. You could say to the bottom rail, and then we'll see that where that gets chopped up, but it's only for this beginning one. If I said corner post bottom, hit apply, then this one changes up here as well. Typically you're going to want these to go to the host though, depending on the design of your staircase or your railing. And then you can put in an offset here. So if you wanted to, you could say 1 foot from the host, and it'll bring that up. But just for that specific one, just for the beginner or the end or what have you. Okay, so that's not what I want. I'll bring that back to 0. You can also define an offset for the top and say where the top's going to go. Right now it's still saying top rail element, and that's actually what we want. Or you could say, you know what, I only want it to go up 8 inches from the bottom rail. So you've got a lot of options here. You can see to hit apply. Now it's just 8 inches from that bottom rail. So probably not what you want, but I just wanted to illustrate that there are a lot of options in here for these various posts. So now you can see I've got the 8-inch offset up above the top rail. Okay, so we'll just put that back to 0. The space, this is basically, well, let's just take a look here. If we put that in as 2 inches instead, let's see what happens. It moves it in to the pattern. If you wanted it to move outside, because maybe you have a decorative post or something that's not like a square or an equal profile, you can modify that. The offset is going to move it again, same thing as our railings or our balusters. This moves it horizontally, either away from the host or inside of the host, like into the stair path. So typically that's going to stay at 0, but the spacing you might want to inset that. So let's just take a look what happens if we put the corner post at 4. Okay, so we hit apply. That should move over. Okay, so yeah, that's more or less the handrails in a nutshell. There's some other things too, like landing height adjustment. So if your landing height for your railing isn't the same as your handrail for the staircase, you can apply that as well. There's a quick override here for baluster offset, so you can either move that in or out. Angled joins, right now I've got this set up to add a vertical or horizontal segment, and that's essentially if this elevation changes, what happens in here. Let's just take a look. We might have something like that in place. Okay, so I've got these guys here set up. So this is probably a good place to take a look at this. If we wanted to adjust, this is the rectangular handrail that we were just looking at, and we hit edit type. Let's take a look at some of these options. Okay, so landing height adjustment, say yes, and if we put in 4 inches, you can see that landing height got a little bit higher. Okay, so don't want that. Let's change that back. Change this to no. Angled joins, you can say no connector, and you can see right in this area here, it's basically it's taken out that piece that brings it to the horizontal, and it's kind of intersecting. And then tangent joins, you could say add vertical horizontal segments. This is probably what you're going to want to have in there. And then rail connections trim, there is a way to there's a way to change this as well. Sometimes if you take a look at it in plan, you'll see the rail joins and how they come together. Let's investigate that a little bit further. I'm just going to come over to this one that's in plan, and if you choose the railing, if you say edit path and you grab 2 corners that come together, then you'll see the rail join. Right now it's by type. You could say insert vertical flat segment, extend rails to meet, no connector. Typically if you've got it set up in the type, then you don't have to do anything here, but maybe you want to override that, and you can do so in the actual path for the railing. Okay, so when you're done with that and you're happy, you can hit that green check mark. But now that I'm in a plan view, why don't I just illustrate what that baluster offset, no, sorry, not the baluster offset. There was oh right, in here as well. So your handrail 1 and handrail 2, you can see that right now there's no type for that. So you can come in here and change these as well. I believe I've got another one set up though over here. So if we take a look at this one, I'm just going to flip this section around. We can see that this is a different handrail setup. Okay, so this is called handrail rectangular wall mounted. And what I wanted to show on this one is that if we go to edit type, we look at baluster placement, you'll see that it says none. This is wall mounted, so there's no posts either. But if we scroll down to where it says handrail 1 and handrail 2, we've got these set up with a position. So on the right side, it's pipe wall mounted, and on the left side, it's also pipe wall mounted. But what you'll notice if you go to the other side of this actual stair is I actually have a different type of railing. It's not wall mounted. So that's the one that has the balusters. It's open to the space beside it. So obviously not wall mounted. But these things here, you can see that this is the left side. It's handrail 2, and I've got the pipe wall mount. If I change these, you'll see that there is a slight difference going on with these little connectors here. Hit OK, and it's changed these up slightly. You can't, I don't think you can really see the difference that this isn't circular. Let's just see here. Make one more change. It said rectangular wall mount. So that's actually the railing there, yeah. So that, right, okay. So this is going to change the actual rail type. So the type, rectangular wall mount, or you can have circular. That should take away my connectors. Let it think just for a second here. Sorry, bear with me. Okay, so that's changing this actual rail. So if I keep that selected, so you can see I've changed, this is the profile of the handrail, and then whether it's wall mounted or not, right? So if it's a pipe, it's a tube. If it's rectangular, it's square tubing. So like I said, lots of little things to take a look at in here. But you can change your height here, and then the type in here as well. But one thing you'll want to bear in mind is this is not a top rail. This is an actual handrail. So they are slightly different. If we came in here to this one and we said edit type and we go to top rail, right? This has actually been deleted for this type. So you're not seeing the top rail. What you're seeing is the handrail 1 and no, you're seeing the handrail 2, sorry, because this is the left side of the stair. Okay, so hopefully that kind of takes some of the mystery and confusion out of handrails. If you haven't seen the video that we produced last time for top rails, make sure to check that out because these two videos kind of go hand in hand. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment box below and we'll get back to them as soon as possible. Thanks for watching. Bye now.